Nigeria. And I am Tion Joseph, your regular host. In just about 3 minutes, Nigerian newspapers. Permit me to begin with Leadership newspaper, the most influential newspaper in Nigeria. On the front page of Leadership this morning, the lead story says, "As scarcity of Naira bites harder, PMB disowns Emefiele Malami over defiance of Supreme Court. Says he's not responsible for plight of Nigerians. Old Naira notes remain legal tender. CBN governor. Labour gives FG 7 days to end Naira fuel scarcity." That is the report we have on the front page of Leadership this morning. But of course, you can find more stories on our website. You just need to hop onto www.leadership.ng and you will be served. Also, don't forget to grab a copy of Leadership newspaper by the newspaper stand near you. Having said that, let's move briskly to the Nation newspaper. On the Nation this morning, the list story says CBN okays 1,000 naira, 500 naira old notes after Buhari's rebook. President, I never asked Emefiele Malami to flout Supreme Court judgment. That is the report we have on the front page of the Nation newspaper. That takes us to this day. And the list story on this day says CBN directs commercial banks to accept payout old 500 naira, 1,000 naira notes. Apex Bank needs no presidential directive to comply with Supreme Court order, says President. Insists President has never done anything to obstruct course of justice. NLC gives FG 7-day ultimatum to end currency scarcity, threatens strike. And lastly, Emefiele debunks fake news, denies alleged plot against Tinubu. That is the report we have from THISDAY newspaper. Now that takes us to Blueprint newspaper. And the list story on Blueprint this morning says Supreme Court order on Naira redesign. After Buhari's blast, NSC governor's threat, Emefiele surrenders. Says owed 200 naira, 500 naira, 1,000 naira remain legal tender till December 31. Excuse of awaiting presidential directives untenable, says presidency. That is what we have on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper this morning. And now to conclude the first part of the show, let's look at the Vanguard newspaper. The list still remains similar. It says CBN tells banks to accept owed 200 naira, 500 naira, 1,000 naira notes. Buhari didn't instruct Malami to disobey Supreme Court judgment, says presidency. And lastly, maintains president has never defied court order since 2015. That is the report we have on the Vanguard newspaper, and this concludes the first part of the show. And now we head on to the second part of the show where more justice will be given to these headlines. I indulge you to stay tuned for this part of the show. My name is Tion Joseph. I'll be back here with 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Until then, do have a great day.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome to Tuesday edition of Inside Nigeria. It's actually the breakfast segment of the show, and it's reaching you on Leadership Television. As you can see with me in the studio, my name is Winnie Freddy, and with me in the studio is Aaron Runaway.
No.
Yes,
I'm back now.
he's back now. He's also a publisher of Daybreak Nigeria Limited. He's also a public affairs analyst. It's always so pleasure. I feel so happy and honored to have you in today's edition of the program.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure to be here.
Thank
And
you
nice
so
to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you. Now, the papers are washed with the same story on their lead cover. This Tuesday, March 14, 2023. And of course, it's a story on the Buhari's absorbing self on this controversial Naira redesign notes. I'll start with Leadership newspaper. Leadership says, as scarcity of Naira bites harder, PMB disowns Emefiele Malami over defiance of Supreme Court. As scarcity of Naira bites harder, PMB disowns Emefiele Malami over defiance of Supreme Court. Says he's not responsible for plight of Nigerians. Old Naira notes remain legal tender, CBN governor. Labour gives federal government 7 days to end Naira fuel scarcity. From Leadership, we also have similar story on The Guardian. The Guardian says Naira redesign policy. Buhari absorbs self as CBN finally obeys Supreme Court order. CBN has no reason not to obey Supreme Court on Naira redesign policy. CBN releases cash to banks as rationing intensifies. Obey Supreme Court judgment. NBA urges federal government CBN. Middle Belt Forum Kogi urge action on Supreme Court ruling. From The Guardian, we have also the same story on The Punch. The Punch says Emefiele finally bows to pressure, says old Naira notes legal tender. Emefiele finally bows to pressure, says old Naira notes legal tender. CBN directs banks to accept, disburse old 1,000 Naira, 500, 200 and redesigned bank notes. Disobeying court order undermines rule of law, constitution, democracy, NBA president. AGF CBN governor don't need Buhari's directive to obey Supreme Court, says presidency. And of course, on The Nation, CBN okays 1,500 old notes after Buhari's rebuke. President, I never asked Emefiele Malami to flout Supreme Court judgment. CBN okays 1,500 old notes after Buhari's rebuke. President Muhammadu Buhari says, I never asked Emefiele Malami to flout Supreme Court judgment. That is on The Nation. And these days says, CBN directs commercial banks to accept, pay out old 500 Naira, 1,000 Naira notes. Apex Bank needs no presidential directive to comply with Supreme Court order, says President. Insists President has never done anything to obstruct course of justice. NLC gives federal government 7-day ultimatum to end currency scarcity, threatens strike. Emefiele debunks fake news, denies alleged plot against Tinubu. And on Vanguard, CBN tells banks to accept old 200, 500, 1,000 notes. Buhari didn't instruct Malami to disobey Supreme Court judgment. Presidency maintains president has never defied court orders since 2015. Sanwo-Olu Abiodun threatened banks over rejection of old notes. Lastly, on Blueprint newspaper, Supreme Court order on Naira redesign. After Buhari's blast, NLC governor's threat, Emefiele surrenders. Supreme Court order on Naira redesign. After Buhari's blast, NLC governor's threat, Emefiele surrenders. Says old 200 Naira, 500, 1,000 Naira remain legal tender till December 31st. excuse of awaiting presidential directives on tenable presidency. Wow.
Yeah, the stories
Yes.
are replete. They are
Yes.
full with the
Ooh.
event that played out yesterday, prominent of which, like you highlighted in the front pages
Yes.
of the paper, is the CBN reversal
Yes.
of an earlier directive.
And Buhari's Ebaton.
Yes.
How do you see Buhari's Ebaton? And he now heaps the blame on Emefiele that they didn't need him
It's vintage Buhari,
to obey Supreme Court order.
not to take responsibility for anything. Buhari doesn't take responsibility.
But we had when the
in 8 years of his presidency, which terminates on May 29th this year, Buhari has never taken responsibility for anything. It's either he keeps quiet or he shifts the blame.
Oh, he's not aware.
You know, in the beginning, it was body language. When body language failed, people say he's not aware, he doesn't know. When things are going wrong in the system, people will normally tell that, oh, he's not aware, he's not aware. And here we are today. This one that is fully aware of, which he endorsed, from all indication, he endorsed it. He's not saying, he's not shifting the blame. He's not making it seem as if it is not his fault that the CBN has not been able to comply with the directive or the order of the Supreme Court. We can even, for why I'm saying this is because, you understand, because why I'm saying that Buhari has tactically thrown the CBN and the Attorney General Melami under the bus is because, see, when the same Supreme Court gave an order earlier, or I think that order was February 22nd, just before the election.
Yes.
When the order was akin to like maintain the status quo until give a final or this final judgment, maintain status quo. Buhari came on air, made a national broadcast, and what did he say? He said the old 200 naira note should be released into circulation. It's not the CBN that made that order. The CBN didn't come to say, okay, we are complying or we are not complying. The CBN kept mute, but Buhari took ownership and announced
defying Supreme Court.
He's more like interpreting the order or modifying the order instead of going the whole hog of allowing 200, 500. He cherry picked. He said, "Okay, release the 200 naira into." You understand? Which means he was aware of the Supreme Court judgment.
Yes.
He interpreted it the way he liked and made a public pronouncement to that effect, to his own interpretation, by releasing the 200 naira note. Now, this time around, the Supreme Court gave an express order that, look, this process, Nigerians are suffering, Nigerians are having their money confiscated by the bank. There's no law anywhere, according to the verdict of the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, that allow banks to withhold your money. There's no law anywhere. There's no law in our statute that allow you deposit your money. You are entitled to your deposit, whether you want to transfer it or you want it in cash. There's no law anywhere to that effect. And I'll give an order and say, look, let the old and the new naira note remain as legal tender side by side until 31st of December this year. What did Buhari do? What did CBN do? Unlike in the first case, they both kept mum. And you can rationalize it and understand with the CBN to say, look, they couldn't have jumped the gun. They couldn't have taken any action on their own. They couldn't have preempted Mr. President.
Exactly.
They wanted or waited for a direct order from Mr. President. And when none was forthcoming, everybody was just playing hide and seek, looking at the body language of Mr. President, watching whether he's aware or he's not aware. And when it became obvious that he's aware, what happened? That's what played out yesterday. And I think Mr. President had no other option but to act. But in acting, he tactically
threw them
under the bus and tried to remove the blame or the spotlight from himself. And I think if you look at leadership, I think leadership and blueprint, they play the story very well. Now let's look at leadership. Leadership cover. Leadership said after Buhari Buhari's blast, NLC, Governor's threat, Emefiele surrenders. You know, yesterday, about 3 things happened in quick succession. One, I don't know the Buhari's blast blueprint is talking about, but I'm aware of the NLC, Nigerian Labour Congress, under its new leadership of Joe Ajero, when they issue an 7 days ultimatum to the federal government to address the issue of Naira's scarcity in the system. 7 days ultimatum. Naira and fuel scarcity.
After how many lives have been lost?
After several people, after needless suffering. So when they issue this ultimatum, shortly, that was yesterday afternoon, then later in the evening, the spokesperson of Mr. President, Garba Shehu, released a statement to the effect that, look, this order that the CBN is flouting is not our fault. Buhari doesn't disobey court order. Buhari has always been somebody that obeys the court, obey order. So if they have refused to obey the order of the Supreme Court, it's not because Buhari ordered, gave an express instruction for the CBN not to obey the order. So the CBN later in the night now came up after the NLC threat and Buhari's
last. Obviously, that's what Blueprint is referring to.
After that is why I said Blueprint and leadership carried it. Look at how leadership carried it. Said PMB disowns Emefiele, Malami, disown, or like I said, threw them under the bus. After I have disowned them, the CBN had no moral grounds anymore to insist on the policy, so they have to back down and now issue a press release to the effect that, look, the order of the Supreme Court states both the old and the new Naira notes will be in circulation.
Now, there's another thing that is also not really worrisome, out of interest. Why is APC, still members of APC, taking it so personal? There is a new plot against the president-elect.
No, I don't think the APC is like a house divided against itself.
Emefiele debunks fake news, denies alleged plot against Tinubu.
The plot can be alleged.
I normally, before
I have had occasion just to speak about this, and when I speak about this, I put the blame right on the doorstep of Mr. President. There is a November 10th, 2002 interview granted by Mr. President to Premium Times. It was viral. A lot of people saw it. And when the Naira redesign policy came on stream, especially this in the last 1 month where there has been so much hiccup in the system, that video went viral. And if you listen to that video, I don't know whether you saw it, what Mr. President was saying is to the effect that, look, this policy is designed, has come to stay, and it is designed to what? To check vote buying. That he doesn't want people who have money to influence the election and people using talk to stop people from being able to exercise their franchise. And when you say the exercise is designed to come vote buying, who are the people you are referring to? That is where the old guy, he did not say, but if you look at his body language, his choice of words.
But actually, it helps. You saw during the presidential and National Assembly election, we didn't see people trying to lure voters with money.
They lure voters with other things. But you don't lure voters.
It's not just money.
It's not just money. So you cannot expressly say that you make a policy decision just for a policy decision that is going to affect over 200 million Nigerians. You make it for political expediency, just because of the presidential election. You make such a policy that has, humongous implication for the generality of all of us, like we've seen in the last couple of weeks. So to that extent, I don't think the president and the CBN acted right. Because at the end of the day, with the reversal of the policy now, what have we achieved?
Nothing.
So it was a journey. It was just a journey of going back and forth with my rolling, needless suffering by the citizens,
Just-
all to no end.
Some.
And we shouldn't forget the implication and cost this policy had on the economy.
Oh yes.
I was reading a report yesterday by one body called CPP, private, I believe, is an economic and research organization, where it stated that the Nigerian economy in the last 2 months, as a result of this policy, has lost as much as 20 trillion. Even you, as an individual, you know that this policy have had very far-reaching consequences.
Very, because
On
everything
you,
you have
your-
to buy, you pay
Yes.
more.
We now have a
Additional charges.
naira to naira exchange market,
Yes.
whereby if you want to buy naira,
Naira.
you have to pay or lose, depending on what you are doing, 20-30% of your money.
That's
to
what
be able
we've
to access
seen
your
this
funds.
past
And the suffering Nigerians have been going through, when you have to spend countless amount of hours queuing on banking hall. all
some
because
banks
you
were
want
even raised
to
have
yes,
it in
that's it,
is it
yes.
Oyo, Edo
Yes,
State,
even in
Delta,
Lagos.
Delta,
Even in
and
Lagos.
Lagos.
We are looking at the
And lives
cost.
were lost.
Mm.
Many
And the
lives were lost.
cost to this economy. And that is why people are even beginning to call somebody must go down for this failed policy. Somebody must go down for it. People are calling for the prosecution of the CBN government. Because you can't come out with a policy brought needless suffering to Nigeria. Then at the end of the day, you reverse it without consequences. There should be consequences. You know, when you come up with political decisions like this, and at the end of the day, you didn't achieve anything. People lost their life, the economy hemorrhaged,
Crumbled.
and at the end of the day, you walk free. No, there should be a proper probe. And the next this administration may not be able to do it, but in my mind, I believe that the next administration should institute a probe of this policy to get to the root of it. What actually happened? What was the CBN really trying to?
They're giving the immunity the CBN governor enjoyed. I think he has more than a year or two, almost 2 years to go in this administration. You think, or should it be after his administration?
Does he enjoy immunity? I'm not aware he
Yes,
enjoys
as in
immunity.
you cannot remove him, things like that. Remember
He
the
can remove
Wuhan
it.
that happened during
I
the
believe even if Buhari calls the CBN governor and say, please, hand me your give him pen and paper and say, write your resignation. He can't say you can't do it. That's what I feel. If I'm President Buhari, I call my CBN governor. I said, I give him pen and paper and say, write me your resignation. Then he will look at my face and tell me that I have immunity, you can't sack me by the CBN Act and fulfill my tenure. Or if the incoming administration, Ebola Ahmed Tinubu, call the CBN governor and say, sit down there, take a plain sheet of paper and a pen and hand over to her and say, give me your resignation.
Or you could even write the resignation
and tell him to sign.
Yeah.
Then you tell, then you say you won't do it.
President.
So the guy has to go. The guy obviously have been politically exposed. Don't even forget, you know, what we are suffering now has been long in coming. This is a CBN governor who threw his heart, a serving CBN governor who threw his heart into the ring and wanted to contest the presidency of this country under the APC. And we bring me to the issue that I wanted to highlight on earlier on. See, the government is APC. Mr. President is APC. CBN governor, APC. We wanted to
it's supposed to be non-partisan.
It's supposed to be non-partisan, but from what we are seeing, they are all APC. National Assembly controlled by the APC. Judiciary is supposed to be independent, but we can assume that they are APC. You find out, you find out that then all the governors that are for and against the policy, 90% of them are APC. So at the end of the day, you begin to wonder and ask yourself the question of why can't a political party with its member come together and agree on before all this back and forth, before we got to where we are today? Why couldn't they all come together and say and agree, if not for any other thing, but for the sake of suffering Nigerians and find a way
out of
the situation?
Wow, it's really, really sad. Well, let's go on a break. When we come back, we have other issues another topic to be discussing today. Don't go away, stay tuned.
sponsorship, and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
Welcome back. You're still on to Inside Nigeria, your number one breakfast show on television. My name is Winifred Ogobo, and I have with me in the studio the publisher of.
I'm seeing here Dr. Austin Maho.
Austin
I'm seeing here publisher Daybreak Nigeria.
Yeah, taking over from me. Anyway, we are going to have our second topic of discussion on today's breakfast show. Yesterday, finally, the INEC had a meeting with the legal team of Labour Party, and it says that INEC pledged to make all documents available, that it has nothing to hide. And of course, it's been trending since, because earlier on, during a television interview with the presidential candidate of Labour Party, Peter Obi, he did say that up to that time he was having an interview, INEC was yet to grant access to those electoral materials and beavers before, as reconfiguration was taking place. However, before the day, rather yesterday, the news trended that the legal team of Labour Party was at INEC to access the documents. And Blueprint has the story on its cover. It says INEC to LP will make all documents available, nothing to hide. Only 10 days remaining to file petition, parties lead counsel. IGP orders CPs, that is Commissioner of Police, to conclude investigations, hand over cases to commission. Still on the Guardian newspaper, we have election materials. We have nothing to hide. INEC chair says Labour Party legal team. And on the issue of the presidential election that took place February 25th, Buhari says on this day, newspaper, February 25th presidential poll better than past elections in Nigeria. Says only losers disputing outcome of exercise. Declares outcome strengthens Electoral Act's integrity. That is on this day. Now, the same thing in Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard also has however, a different one. It says that not God's will to accept rigged elections will be. It's not God's will to accept rigged elections will be. Labour Party's legal team meets INEC over inspection of election materials.
What
do you have to say?
It was long in coming.
And the party says
to me there are two parts to the story. The first part is, you saw how leadership captured the story.
Yes, we have 10 days
left. We have 10 days left to file petition. From the time, the February, from the conclusion of the presidential election to date, I think Labour Party or agreed parties, not just Labour Party, it's all the parties, including the 18 others who contested the election and lost, or according to INEC, they lost the election. They have about 21 days to file their petition before the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. But the point is that this is, as at yesterday, was the 10th day. As at today is the 9th day, which means they have not. If you read that story, I paid attention to that story yesterday. You find out that in the last 11 days, all agreed parties who want to file petition before the Electoral Tribunal have not been able to access any documents from INEC. So what are you expecting them to do if they can't put their documents together to
even
file
despite court order?
Yes, they've not been able to. The point is, they've not been able to. In other words, they've lost 10, 11 days without access, without INEC granting them access, to election materials to be able to,
file petitions,
view the case. So that is one part of the story. The other part of the story is that the Labour Party legal team practically stormed INEC
Yes, they did.
to confront the chairman of the commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to like, come, we need these documents. What is happening? Why don't we have access to these documents? And what did he say?
Oh,
He
you
said,
can have them.
he didn't say we can't have them. He said, we have nothing to hide. That's what
Oh,
Professor
yes,
we have
nothing
nothing to hide. We will give you access to all the documents. And the question that came to my mind is, after what happened with the February 25th general election, are we in a position to believe the chairman of INEC that he's a man of his word, that is credible enough to say, look, we have nothing to hide.
Besides,
We will
after
make
11 days have elapsed,
and
you
he,
playing
hanky panky, and he
hanky-panky.
did nothing.
Yes.
Are you in a position whereby we can say now that we trust you, that you will make those documents available? The issue of trust is important, because this is the same Mahmoud Yakubu who prior, before the presidential election, made promises about rivers,
Yes.
about IRF, about game changer, about electronic transmission of results. And on election day, he did a reversal without explanation, without apology. How do you trust what comes out of the mouth of such a person? To me, that's a dilemma. And I believe many Nigerians, these days, if the chairman of INEC speaks, people are going to take it with not a pinch of salt, maybe with a bag of salt, because he has put himself in a position where no one can trust him anymore. He has put himself in a position where anything that comes out of his mouth is to be doubted, is not to be taken as the truth, as absolute truth. And he has brought down with the way he conducted. I'm not saying this on my own. The reports are there.
Yes,
everybody that observed that election, both local and international observers, they have one thing or the other to say. And what do they say? One thing, one story they say, that INEC didn't live its own standard.
Yes.
INEC didn't live to its own promises in terms of collation, transmission, general preparedness for the election. So that is what I see in this case. Can we trust INEC? On the part of Labour, now that you have just 9-10 days, is it enough for you to put all the materials you need together to be able to file your petition before the tribunal?
All right. Another worrisome issue too is the issue of IGP. We have it on blueprint that IGP orders police commissioners of police to conclude investigations, hand over cases to commission. Now, during their election, the fated February 25th election, we saw viral videos of some policemen carrying out outrightly snatching,
acting beyond their brief.
Exactly. Why some actually, even though some did not participate, they watched as their leaders were cutting, were doing whatever they like,
and did nothing.
And
the police spokesperson, there was an incident in Lagos, remember?
Many.
Where the police spokesperson in Lagos, one actually had the temerity to say that, to ask Nigerians that, what do you expect unarmed policemen to do? And I asked myself,
so I expected the IGP to address these issues that, these policemen, in fact, their faces were everywhere. We are going to prosecute them, indict them, but nothing has been done. I'm like, no, in a safe society, policemen were caught doing other what they were not supposed to do on election day, and you don't say anything about it. Meanwhile, we are talking about talks that are going to be prosecuted or arrested. I don't know. Have we lost it totally?
The police need to do more. It's a wake-up call to them that they need to do more. That the expectation, prior to the election, we are aware now, you are a journalist, you saw how the Nigerian police, apart from INEC, The Nigerian police itself told us that they are prepared.
Oh
They
yes.
acquired new gears.
Yes.
new
Even
vehicles.
President Buhari even
In fact,
commissioned their
yeah, that is the point I'm trying to say.
vehicles.
We saw the
Yes.
vehicle, we saw the anti-riot gears,
Yes.
a policeman were kitted up with everything, and these things were acquired because of the election. In sums running into billions of naira.
Oh yes.
And the IGP of police came out to say, look, we've acquired this thing, now we are prepared. We knew how they deployed all over the country. But unfortunately, we do know that of the 176 plus thousand polling, there are reports that there were no police in some of those places. Even in the places where there were police,
Yes.
we know that they were, when one of the rules of election is that, or the code of conduct for security personnel during election is that, look, VIPs should not be seen being escorted around putting you to police. But we see this play out, and some of these policemen, there was a case in Kogi where the viral video where not a copper, I think
Yes,
the local government
chairman came and was
tearing ballot
and policemen were
and
looking.
they were, in fact, they were giving protection
Yes.
to do what they were doing.
And the IGP is not saying anything about it. We
And
also saw a place in
you
Lagos.
saw the faces of these policemen. We
Yes.
actually saw a place in maybe a video from Lagos
And it's
where a thug,
oh, you just
Yes,
took
I
the words
saw
out of my mouth. Insisted that
if you are not voting
here
for a particular party,
you are not
better
voting
leave
here.
this place. A policeman was there and did nothing.
and did not, and the IGP is not calling
Is
the
not-
talk is still free,
Yes.
roaming free.
Yes. And there's another case of some policemen. The thug is still free, and from indication is a popular thug.
Yes, and nobody is doing anything
Nobody is
about
free.
it.
And when
So
this,
which talks is the IGP not talking
yes,
about
to
that
do
they are
some,
handing over?
yes, to do some measure of in-house cleaning within the police. Who are you handing over? Are you handing your policemen to INEC to go and prosecute for you?
Exactly.
So I think maybe the IG is being clever by half.
Being
clever by half.
Nigeria descended so low that the IGP will look us in the face and just pretend that
As if-
nothing happened.
Yes,
that is,
within
it's
his
not,
own,
we're not,
within,
exactly,
yeah,
within
the
his
force
own.
under,
I mean,
forces under his control.
yes,
So what we expect, the prosecution should be in two prongs.
yes.
One, internal house cleaning.
Mm.
Your police officers, which we know, which we saw their
We
faces.
saw one when they were cutting away ballot in Lagos and they entered the van, open van. People were shouting, they are not even counted the votes. They are not even counted, and nobody's talking about
Yes.
it.
So he should do some measure of in-house cleaning. He should locate those policemen, identify them, and give them the
So
first
then
aid,
what then happened to the
orderly-
ballot boxes?
orderly route trial of those policemen. Then those that are civilian that have been arrested, those are the ones you should sort out and maybe hand over to
Because
INEC.
because what
And INEC itself, in fact, it's not just two prongs. There are three prongs approach to cleaning up, those who committed one infraction or the other in the course of this election. Not infraction, crime. That's what it is. INEC itself should do its own house cleaning because there are INEC staff, whether permanent staff or ad hoc staff, who have been fingered as having taken part in some
but that's what
electoral
many
malpractice.
people are saying. Many people are of the opinion that this INEC, the people you pointed at, whether ad hoc or permanent staff, they couldn't have been able to carry out what they did without the connivance and support of police
That is the
that were
point.
there.
That's why the police should take care of his own. INEC should take care of his own. Then those that are civilian, then those ones can be prosecuted independently.
Because we are having
if as a staff of leadership you committed a crime or an offense, or you committed some ethical violation within the organization, it's your organization first that will sanction you.
Exactly.
And if, depending on the gravity of the crime, it's either they show you the way out, or they say, okay, if it's high crime, then they call it, they invite the police to come and address the issue. So that is why I'm saying that the police should do its own in-house cleaning.
Because the
Followed by
IGP
INEC,
keeping mute
in-house
over
cleaning.
it and looking at us in the face as if we didn't see
don't know what we are
anything.
saying.
We don't know what we are
We
saying.
saw
It's
everything.
absurd. It's absurd. Even if he didn't even mean it, the IGP owes it to, as a matter of accountability, to Nigerians, to tell Nigerians that, those videos, or he wants to pretend that we didn't see the videos, just like he didn't.
So at the end of the day, he raises the question of what is the IGP really talking about? Who are those he's calling for their prosecution? Are they his own, or he made a sweeping statement?
Yes.
Are they his own? Are they the police officer? Because, like, from what you are saying, we expect that he should make specific statement. At least within his public, the policemen are answerable to him. Even a commissioner of police in a state is answerable to him. So you expect him first and foremost to address that issue, because a lot of us are concerned.
Yes.
Don't forget that next Saturday we are going to another round of governorship election, and we don't want to see this again. And when you leave this kind of gap, whereby people feel that they can do all kinds of things and get away with it,
yes,
they will do the worst of it on Saturday. Because you are giving the impression that,
and of course, you are also going to have a water party.
Yes. So this is the situation we find ourselves. The IGP should do better.
All right. Now, the Labour Party says it has only 10 days. What is it going to do with just 10 days now?
It's come in with about 60 senior advocates. So I believe they have their strategy. And don't forget that Peter Obi is a veteran when it comes to fighting for his mandate.
Oh yes, that's why he's calm about it.
He has his experience in Anambra State.
Yes,
he reclaimed his mandate on two different occasions.
Yes.
So let him bring that experience to bear.
As a matter of fact, on 3 different occasions, remember he got his mandate late. Thank God for this new electoral act. So he also went to Supreme Court to say, no, I was sworn in late. Exactly, I was sworn in late. So
he has to complete
his tenure. And really, they got him. That's why you have some states today. Because he started it. He went to court.
So the point is that
he believes so much in
the court processes have always worked
for him.
So let's see how far.
Thank you so much. That is you ending it on an optimistic note
that justice will be served.
Yes, justice will be served. What we ask this where we end today's Inside Nigeria. It's on Leadership Television. Don't forget, same time, same station. Tomorrow is another day. Dr. Austin Maho, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
I look forward to having you.
No problem.
So viewers,
God willing, we'll be there.
I remember when you feel the See you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.